You spent weeks outlining that novel of yours. You had every plot twist meticulously planned, every character arc completely mapped out. But when you sit down to write, something isn't clicking. What happened? Here's the thing, plotting and writing scenes are completely different skills. Don't worry, today I'm sharing my feels method for turning flat scenes into pages your readers can't put down. And stay tuned for element number 3. That's the one that writers all think they're doing, but a lot of times they're missing the most important half. F is for focus. Your scene needs a goal. Now, we're not talking about a macro goal here. Your book is going to have a large macro goal or something that needs to be accomplished by the end of the book, usually in that climax, right? So if you've got a mystery, your detective needs to figure out who committed this murder by the end of the book. But each scene along the way needs a micro goal. So you need to present your main character with an opportunity to take one step closer toward achieving that macro goal. So again, if you've got your mystery, you have a detective who in this particular scene needs to get in a suspect's house without tipping off the wife, as an example. You need a micro goal in each specific scene that will take your main character one step closer toward achieving the macro goal. E is for emotion. Your scene needs a heart. Now, we all know we need to depict what our character feels in every scene, but sometimes what authors forget is that emotion can actually drive action. Say you've got a romance and we're in the big climactic moment and one of our main characters, Leo, knows that Michelle is the love of his life, and of course he's at the airport and he's got to stop her from leaving town, right? Well, he's so desperate, his emotion is desperation. He's so desperate to get to Michelle, to tell her the way he feels, that he, busts through airport security, and now the TSA is tackling him and won't let him through, and he misses Michelle. So his emotion, his desperation, drives his action that changes the course of the book. All right, E is also for escalation. Your scene needs stakes. Now, writers are really good at coming up with bigger and bigger obstacles as the book goes along. But a lot of times what they forget is to include what that main character might lose if they are not successful. And again, we're not talking necessarily about the big macro goal. Obviously, in our romance example, if Leo doesn't get to Michelle, he believes he's going to lose the love of his life. That's a pretty big moment. But if we go back to our mystery example, where the detective was just trying to get, access to a suspect's house, in this specific scene, he can believe that, if he tips off the wife, she's never going to allow him in this house again. He's tipped her off that this person, this husband of hers, is in fact a suspect, and she's never going to allow him in the house again, and he'll lose access. So what can your main character lose in this specific scene? What is at risk? That's going to really help ramp up the tension. Here's the thing, every scene gives your main character an opportunity to get a step closer to that macro goal, but they're not always going to be successful. That would start to get very one note as well. But even when your main character is unsuccessful, they gain something else, a new perspective, a new insight, a new idea. Every scene is an opportunity to advance or not. Here's one way to think about it. Emotion is what drives your main character to act, and escalation is what it will cost them if they don't. L is for lens. Every single scene should be filtered through your main character's worldview. As an example, say you've got two characters walking into an ice cream shop. One's a middle-aged doctor and one's an 8-year-old little girl. They are going to narrate that experience completely differently because of where they are in their lives. How about another mystery example? Say you've got a serial killer bumping into the detective who is investigating his case in a gas station. Okay, if you write this from the detective's point of view, she's running on fumes, she's obsessing about this case, she's running through the clues over and over in her head, and when she bumps into this man, he barely even registers. But if you write this from the killer's point of view, he can take this as a rejection. He doesn't think she's preoccupied, he thinks she is rejecting him. And now he's putting her on the list to be his next victim. Same moment, but a completely different scene depending on whose head you're in. S is for shift. Something needs to change at the end of the scene. It doesn't have to be huge, but something needs to be different. Maybe the detective in your mystery has another clue. Maybe the couple in your romance has their first kiss. Maybe the main character in your adventure novel falls through the ice covering a pond, but in the process of being rescued, they meet the sidekick that's going to be with them throughout the rest of the book. If nothing changes at the end of the scene, you've actually got what I would refer to as a placeholder scene. All that scene is doing is getting your main character from point A to point B. You can cut that scene. Ask yourself, if I deleted this scene, would the readers notice? Would anything about this book be any different? If the answer is no, you know what to do. So that's the feels method. F is for focus, one clear goal for this specific scene. E is for emotion, feelings that drive action. E is for escalation, obstacles and something to lose. L is for lens, your character's unique worldview. And S is for shift, something changes by the end of the scene. Writing a strong scene is not about luck, and it is not about endless revision. It's about understanding what makes scenes work. I do have a free download about my feels method. It includes a detailed breakdown of all 5 elements. It also includes a checklist, a troubleshooting guide, and even some prompts to rescue a dying scene. Got a link in the description. Use it every single time you write a new scene and watch your drafts get stronger and stronger. Now get to work and give your readers all the feels. Go write something.